And welcome back to the Jungle King 007 channel. Today we're going to be working on an Echo backpack leaf blower. Part number for this one is here, PB260L. As you saw in a little bit of an intro there, it does run, not very well. Carburetor definitely does need to be rebuilt, which we're going to do in this today. Also, if you noticed, I was actually holding the throttle here by hand. The linkage on this one is broken, so we're going to be replacing that today. May do some of the hoses, but I think they're okay. Once I get it on the table, I can take some stuff off. I can actually see for sure. But I mean, just general maintenance. This, you can definitely tell it's been used very well, but occasionally stuff does need to be rebuilt. So carburetor, hoses, and the linkage. I did take it apart prematurely just to see if parts needed to be, what parts needed to be done, and just to make sure this piece was okay as well, and it is. That's the button or the little lever in the armature here. So let's get this down to my table so I can start taking stuff off, and we can start the process on the rebuild. So the first thing I want to check, actually something I didn't mention before we brought this downstairs to the table, is there is something called a spark arrestor, and it sits on this particular one, it sits right under here. This could also be another reason why it was bogging down so much. It's a screen, and actually I have a new one here. This is what a new one looks like. As you can see, you should be able to see right through it, no problems at all. I want to pull this off real fast to see if maybe this is the reason why it was bogging down so bad, because if it gets clogged up, that exhaust gases will not be able to move through it quickly, and then it's going to give you that issue where it sounds like what it was doing in the intro. So let's get this off. It looks like there's a couple Phillips head screws. We'll move a little bit faster here. Pull one of those off. There should be 3 of them. And the third one underneath. Yep. All right. And let's pull this off, all this stuff. Here's the screen I'm referring to. And yeah, if you look at that, that thing is completely clogged up. Shouldn't be like that. You can actually just simply clean these off and you reuse them if you want. Acetone, carb cleaner, whatever. I think it's stainless steel mesh. And then reuse this. I've got a new one here, so I'm just going to swap in the new one. And here's the new spark arrestor mesh. I'm going to go ahead and take the exhaust piece off here. It's just a couple Allen key bolts holding it in place so I can then put everything back together. Next piece we're going to pull off is actually going to be the linkage here. I want to replace that first before I do anything with the carburetor. And it's simply just pull it right through the little plastic insert there. There's the old linkage. Now on here, you'll notice there's a little locking nut. I'll have to pull that out here. Let's see, where are my right sockets? Oh no, not sockets. All right, to get to that, I'm gonna take the carburetor off. Didn't want to do that again, just to have a little bit of leverage, but in order to get to that nut, I'll have to pull this housing out of the way. It is a Phillips head, so let's go ahead and put the Phillips head. There we go. All right, pull that off. All right, so now we can actually reach those a little bit better. Let's see if I can loosen one of these up. Actually, what am I bending? There we go. Looks like it's starting to move. There we go. Got that off. We're actually going to leave this off for now, but I do want to feed the new one in. Here's the new one. As you can see, compared to the old one, obviously there's no wire coming out, and it's supposed to have that little end piece. So we're just going to feed this right back up through here. Pull that all the way to the end so it's not flopping around as you're pushing it up through the insulation here. Oop, didn't come all the way through. All right, that's in there for now. Now let's work on the carburetor here. So you've got your main line and your return line, and as I just popped that off, this just came off, so that does definitely need to be replaced. I'm trying to figure out which one is the main line. Okay, so this one right here is your main gas line. This one right here is going to be your return line. This, I believe, is just a breather. It's held in place by a grommet here. I'm going to pull this off because I do want to replace this line here and see what it looks like on the inside for this line. So simply just get a flat bit or something in there to pull that rubber grommet out. And here is the filter. I do have a replacement filter here. Came in this kit because I'm also replacing the air filter as well. Line still looks okay. I don't see any cracks. It still feels a bit malleable, so I'm going to leave this one alone. This one I do want to replace because it is hard as a rock and it probably won't last very much longer. So we'll do that now. I'm going to take this off and replace that just so it's out of the way. And simply just pop the new one onto the line, and that one's done. And we'll take this line, and I do have some extra here. Let us make sure, yep, same diameter and everything. I'm going to cut it a little bit bigger than what's on here now. Let's give it an extra inch or so, because it wasn't popped into that grommet very far, and I'm going to cut it at an angle. There we go. And then simply on this one, we're going to feed it right back into that grommet. So it has a little bit of room underneath. You can see that it's poking out. That's kind of what you want. So since this is the return line, so it'll just push that fluid right back in, instead of if it was, this is where it was sitting before, just right underneath it, it may kind of burp it back up through that hose or through that hole. So at least it's sticking that far out and we're ready to go. We can put this right back on. That was simple. Make sure it's clean around this. Yeah, you want to make sure when you put this grommet back on, clean it off before you do, because you can see all the grime and stuff on this. You don't want that getting into your tank. So we'll simply pop that back in. And the grommet just simply presses down. If I can get it to get around its rubber boot. There we go. And we're back on. So that portion of this is done. We can push this out of the way for a moment. So the next thing we're going to repair on this is the carburetor. Do have it here. I also have all the new parts that came in the kit, and for all those that need it, this right here is the part number to the kit. I will link to the description where I got that. One thing I have noticed on this while kind of just doing an examination before starting the camera is there are no adjustment screws, and I think for the Walbros, hopefully I'm saying that right, that is kind of their claim to fame, is you put these together and they should work right out of the box, or with new parts they should be fine. Don't know if that's the case, but we'll find out. Also, if you're wanting to replace this, I have been looking online and they are expensive. I've seen somewhere upwards 80, 90 bucks just for this one carburetor for this particular unit. I don't want to spend that much, and my coworker definitely didn't want to spend that much. So we're giving a shot at this repair kit. So let's tear this thing apart, put those new parts in, see what happens. Just finished rebuilding the carburetor here. Didn't take very long at all, probably about 10-15 minutes to do so. Kit was pretty straightforward. There were a couple parts that were still left over. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to use those, but I just couldn't see where some of these were. However, probably what's going on here is these are for another carburetor model that this kit is used on. So not very much of a big deal, simply because the one thing I checked was this right here. There's at least two kits. I think this is part of a diaphragm, and then this is an over gasket. And there were only two pieces on this. I didn't see three, and I did put two of the parts that were in that kit in this. So I think I'm covered. But for now, let me get some of this stuff out of the way, and I can pull the leaf blower forward, and we can install this on it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and install the carburetor now. I went ahead and finished up the linkage, fixed up the handle. As you can see right over here, I just put it all back together. So that was out of the way. Just a couple bolts, that's done deal. So let's put this on. All I'll have to do is basically reverse for the installation, put everything back in its place. So those two bolts and the cover, I'm not sure what to call that, to be honest, but probably just some sort of attachment. So you can attach the cover over this with the air filter in it. We're going to put this into the carburetor spot right here. And then you've got the other gasket. We'll go ahead and put that here as well. So really all we have to do from here is install it back into the housing like so. I'm going to push it down as far as I can. I got to hold those in place so we can drive those in. I'm going to at least get them started. Okay. Again, don't smash them down with an impact. That you may strip something out, so just hand tighten these, and that's typically enough. So now that's on. Let me see if I can flip this around so you can see those lines. Now, if I remember correctly on this one right here was your main line. So the black line is going to be your main suction line with the filter on, and this right here is your return line. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, so this one is exhausting, so this is your return line. So we'll go ahead and install that line on there too. Now, with this one, I did also get a new air filter. Let me show you, here's what a new filter will look like. Here's what the other one looked like. This is actually completely saturated with oil and gas, so don't use them like this. We are going to install it. That kind of sits right there, I think, but I'm just going to push it right there. Where is that cover? Here it is. And simply install the new one right back. This is bent. I didn't want to replace that. I mean, it does its job of holding the filter in place. And just for a piece of plastic, when I think this was like $15, it's a little expensive for something like that. So that's on. All of our lines are on. Well, I thought I was ready to go upstairs, but realized before putting everything on, I forgot to put the linkage bracket back onto the carburetor. That shouldn't take too long. All it does, it just goes on top of this plastic piece by those two bolts. Unfortunately, what I'm going to have to do is take all this off to get to it. So give me just a second. Let me do that. That didn't take long at all. Got the bracket on. So now what we have to do is put this linkage on, and it simply just sits back in this place. Let's see if I can get it in there. There we go. Pretty much like that. I'm going to try to push this nut down a little bit. Let me see if I can angle it. I don't know if you can see it. Let me rearrange the camera. All right, let's do this without trying to get my hands in the way too much. As you can see here, there's the two jam nuts holding it in place. I'm going to try to do this so where it's pretty much halfway in between to give a little bit of room. Now there is a little bit of adjustability in this. Let me put this all the way to stop so we have the max amount of this hanging out. And we're also going to pull this over so we can install that as well. Stick that in there. There we go. And there. So now just to show before I install this, we're at stop right now on the handle. This will move to slow and then fast, but we can see that it's hitting right there and you can't lock it in place. Aha! So I figured out the problem, and I should have noticed this before. Where the little, I guess we can call it a detent, or the little pin on the end of this goes, there's actually a slot on this piece where it's supposed to slide in. So that is my mistake. I should have noticed that. So really all you have to do is press this in. Let me see if I can get it at an angle to allow it to slide into its place. So there's a little bit of a notch here. There we go. There it is. See? Now it will move itself on its own, and we've got ourselves a working throttle. That's fast, that's slow on it, and then that's stop. So actually I need to adjust this a little more so it doesn't have that, because there's about an inch of play right here, and it's now stuck. That's full, so this is not all the way forward. This is all the way forward. So I gotta adjust that a little bit, and then we can bring this upstairs and give it a test. Alright, I think I got it pretty much set up. Looks like it's stopping in the high, that's slow, and then I think what we're doing here is when it goes to the close, it's actually cutting off a circuit, so that's what shuts it off. But I may have to do some adjustments here for the actual low. However, let's get it upstairs and let's see at least if it'll start. Alright, what do you say we try pulling the string a couple times, see what happens. And go ahead and put it on cold start and give it a little gas to see if it'll prime up. Yep, there it goes, it's priming. So now, let's give her a tug. Well, that's a good sign. At least it started. Let's turn her up. And starts and stops just fine. I'm gonna adjust this screw a little bit because it's not even touching the this throttle piece. Kind of want to just make sure that it doesn't kind of sit on that linkage too much. I'm gonna push it just a little bit. That should be enough. Let's give her a start up and see again how that idles. Oh, might help if I turned it from off. First start, awesome. There we go. I'm going to call that a success. I'm happy with this repair. It went very well. It didn't take me very long. I think if I weren't filming this will probably take me no more than 45 minutes to have done. So if you're thinking of doing this yourself, this is very simple to do. Like anything else on these, they do need maintained. Carburetor, obviously, make sure your lines are good. And this one actually needed the addition of a spark arrestor screen. Needed to be replaced or cleaned off. Replaced it on this one, so it's all good. I can hand this back and I can move on to my next project. This is Jungle King 007. Thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe. I do more stuff like this. It's kind of a hobby of mine, kind of getting into this. I do like repairing stuff like this, and it's enjoyable to see something that was thrown away, nobody wanted. You can repair it with a little bit of money and some small parts, get it back up and running, and it works just fine for you. You didn't have to spend what was retail. So feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.